Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video I'm going to be reading through why you should play Retribution Paladin and why you shouldn't play Retribution Paladin in Season 2 of Dragonflight, and kind of giving my thoughts on it, reviewing it, reacting to it, etc., and kind of giving my thoughts too on that question. Should you play Ret or shouldn't you play Ret? And following this is on Wowhead by Bolas, who's like, I always call him like the head Ret Paladin person. I don't know if that's officially his title, but I would consider it so. I would say he's someone who's right over 90% of the time, maybe over 95% of the time. You know, he's someone who's you're able to trust and listen to whether you play at a low level or you play at a super high level. It doesn't matter. I always aspire to be as correct as him, frankly. So this is his article on Wowhead. He writes articles for Wowhead about Ret Paladins. So why you should play Ret Paladin in Season 2. The play style. Compared to earlier in Dragonflight, recent changes made it a lot more fun. Previously, you end up spending a ton of GCDs on abilities that do damage. Crusader Strike Consecration. Abilities feeling unimpressive outside of Seraphim and Final Reckoning. Even your spenders on AoE was a bigger problem, where although Consecration did a decent amount of damage, your regular generators like Judgment and Blade of Justice basically contribute nothing except for generating Holy Power. So this is basically just talking about before the rework, it was just literally you press your Holy Power spenders, they didn't do damage, they did very little single target damage, they did nothing for AoE, and then you used your spender. It was extremely boring, it was just not great at all. Ret's been neglected for a long time before the rework, and now that is much better. You know, you don't have all your abilities cleave now, so you're doing damage in single target and multi-target. Templar Strikes actually does substantive damage. He goes to talk about that. So I agree with all of this. Playstyle is much better than it was previously. It's still, you know, build spend, right? That still basic principle is the same, but your builders feel better, and therefore your spenders always felt kind of fine. Your spenders still feel pretty fine, and the damage windows, the damage is so often, it's like not the highest damage in the game, but it's like so often, every minute wings, every 30 seconds execution sentence for single target. It does feel a little bit better. It doesn't feel like the old, you know, every 2 minutes I have Crusade, I do damage for 25 seconds or 30 seconds, and then I do nothing for a minute and 30. So it doesn't feel like that anymore. Talents in Season 2. So this is again why you should play. So basically with the rework, the talents got a little bit better. It's mostly the same stuff in my opinion. What does he say? With the previous version, you'd run generally the same build. Okay, so he's going to focus on the difference of builds. That's a big thing. So I didn't get a chance to play with it enough because we were still on Razagath, like when the rework came out, and so I didn't get to go back and like do farm and try a bunch of different bosses. Only got to do like a couple different bosses after killing Razagath. And so you had different builds for almost like every boss, which is really cool, right? And you could do the same thing for Mythic Plus. Like you could have a different build for almost each dungeon, depending on how much cleave is in like a normal pull and stuff like that. How much you want to tailor to single target, multi-target, and you don't lose a ton of like single target when you go into your cleave. If you go full AoE, you lose quite a bit of single target. But just having like a cleave build in general, and there's like different levels of cleave you can do as well. You can do, you know, much cleave, but you still keep a little bit of this, like a single target build, or you can just throw a couple of cleave talents in that help you out with that mostly single target build. So I definitely agree with that. It's nice to be able to try different builds. Having a different build on every boss can be a little bit overwhelming, especially for a new player. But you know, the basic player, and I try to include this in my guides, like this is the basic single target build, this is the basic AoE build, right? And then that's more of a high-end thing of delineating these cleave builds, these separate builds. But I'm glad they exist, and I agree. It's something that most classes or a lot of specs already have, so it's not like a huge positive, but just it's like compared to what it was before, it's quite a stark difference. The damage profile, I agree. Damage profile is very good for single target, and the raid is very single target heavy. I also think the set bonus is very good for multi-target, especially for one pull at a time, Mythic Plus. So like you're pulling 5 mobs at a time, like one group at a time. It's very good. So short bursts basically, which is what it is for AoE. I think he mentions that as well in here. So Burst AoE and strong priority single target damage. These are things Ret's always been good at. They still kind of are, even with all the changes. So it's still really good. So it's a good single target, the way it's built, and then like just the toolkit, right? The execution sentence and stuff like that. It's very good built for single target. And then the burst AoE with the Final Wrecking, Wake of Ashes. You just do a bunch of AoE right at the start. And burst AoE is normally more important than sustained, although there are cases where sustained AoE is king. That's where Ret is a bit weak. Utility. So I laughed when I read this one. So it was argued that Ret had no utility at all. And now, with mostly the same spells, it's now argued that Ret does have utility. It's worth mentioning Retribution Aura does provide a raid buff now. So that's actually something. You do kind of want to Ret Paladin, just at least for the Retribution Aura. And then like a Devo Aura as well. So that could be from the Holy Paladin, a Prop Paladin, whatever. But those are raid buffs, so those are really nice. So Retribution Aura being the big change there. Another big change is having Blessing of Sacrifice actually be something that you can full on use, like not just use as a meme to like pop your Shield of Vengeance, or not just use, with bubble or something like that, bubble sack. You can actually just use Blessing of Sacrifice as a Ret Paladin because our toolkit's strong enough defensively that we can, sustain another DPS player who might be taking a bit of damage at any given point. So Blessing of Sacrifice is much more improved by our defensive kit being better. Blessing of Sacrifice is better. Everything else still pretty much the same though. So I do find it funny that utility, it was argued that Ret Paladin had no utility, and now it's like this great utility, but it is two more things essentially. Retribution Aura being a thing, and then Blessing of Sacrifice being an actual non-meme thing to use as Ret. I think that, that's two more things. It does, like if you count the spells he listed, he has 6 total things. It would be 4 to 2. I mean, that's 50% increase. So I guess that is a good amount of increase. He talked about the defenses here. We already just trying to mention this. Very high defensive. You basically always have something for a damage event, which is what I think most specs should have, right? I think every spec, whatever, should have something to press for damage events on bosses. And then the level of defensive-ness from there can be, varied. Like how much is your passive defense, right? Also has very high passive defense with like Sanctified Plates, for example. And other specs have similar things to Sanctified Plates. Sanctified Plates is quite strong, but it's not like other specs don't have similar things, right? In plate classes specifically, they said they want them to be strong. DKs notably have AMS, which just makes them completely unstoppable on magic fights. Warriors have Ignore Pain, which is just a really good button to have as well. So there's just really good, there's really good defenses for plate classes in general. And your plate classes usually live the most. Typically, like your cloth classes die the most, even though they have a lot of defensives too, besides priest. But yeah, so you have to you have plenty to live with defensively as a Ret Paladin. I totally agree with that. And in any normal case, you probably should have died. If you died as Ret Paladin, it's because you messed up, right? You stood in something you should have stand in. You took too many sacks of something, like you messed up. And I think that is when you should die in World of Warcraft, is when you mess up. Why you shouldn't play Retribution. So lack of mobility is still very high. So they didn't really end up doing anything with Divine Seed. They took it off GCD, which it's quite good to have it off GCD. One of the worst things is, as Ret before, trying to wait for the last second to run out of something, but then like, your Divine, you press one too many damage buttons, and then your Divine Seed's a little bit late, and you're trying to get out. So not having it on GCD, makes that not a thing anymore, right? Not having it on GCD means you always press it this many seconds before the event, and you can always press it. There's nothing else stopping you from pressing it. So that is a big change, but it's still Divine Seed. It's still one of the worst movement things in the game. Unbound Freedom, outside of PvP, he mentions here. I totally agree with that as well. Obviously, it's extra speed. I use it a lot on Razagath, helping people move, myself included, right? So I would actually have a priest on my raid team, a shadow priest, that I would cast it on instead of casting it on myself, since it can cast on 2 people or whatever, yourself and one other person. So I'd always cast it on him when I needed movement. just because, you know, for most cases he needed the movement as well. So I really like that spell. I really like that you can put it on somebody else as well. But yeah, it's not the greatest, right? It's still just a crappy movement ability. And then when it comes to pushback, all we have is Divine Shield, has a long cooldown. You typically are going to want to use Divine Shield for like a damage event, not for a pushback, if you could help it. That's the only way we can even deal with pushbacks, which is not great. So mobility is still really poor, and I would say the defensives are really high. Mobility is extremely poor, and if they're not going to do anything special with the mobility, then they should definitely keep the defensives high, because the mobility is still very, very poor. That's true. If you need to be moving, if you need to be always have a button to press to move, then Ret's not the spec for you. That's for sure. The set bonus. So I actually really like the set bonus. Let's talk about these real quick. And he has these on the negative side, which I totally understand why. Judgment and Hammer of Wrath deal 10% increased damage and 15% increased critical strike damage. So this is mostly single target. Obviously, your Divine Toll Judgments hit multiple things, and then the 4-piece, your Hammer of Wrath, hits multiple things as well. So it's actually, on its base, it's a single target thing. But when you add the 4 set, it becomes AoE too, or Cleave. The 4-piece Judgment increases damage taken from your Holy Power spenders by additional 15%, and Hammer of Wrath now hits 4 nearby targets for 20% of its damage. So the second part, you know, kind of makes the first part more AoE, and it's just an AoE thing in itself, you know, a cleave thing for nearby targets. And then this 15% is a single target thing. It's also a multi-target thing, because now your Hammer of Wrath and your Judgments from Divine Toll are putting Judgment on the things that you're hitting. So it's also AoE as well. But so we have a very AoE centered set bonus, and basically, you know, I would say this is quite a nerf for single target damage from our season 1 set bonus to season 2 set bonus. I assume he might mention that didn't end up using on single targets. Now it's tuned low enough. It probably still prioritizes below most other generators. Is now pressing Hammer of Wrath more than ever, but on single target you won't see any difference in gameplay. Disappointing. So he mostly talks about it not changing your gameplay for single target at all, which is true. None of this changes the way you play single target, essentially. Your Hammer of Wrath is applying Judgment, but that's not really that big of a deal, because you have so many Judgment debuffs. I've talked about this before at the tier set. You have so many Judgment debuffs, you're just going to be swimming in them. Like, it's not going to matter. You're never going to be sitting there waiting. Like, I used one Hammer of Wrath, now I need to use some other abilities and spend, and then use my other Hammer of Wrath. Like, you would do that like in execute phase and stuff like that. But I'm just talking like, especially during your opener, Divine Resonance is going off. You're going to be overlapping Judgment debuffs for days during those times. Now, during execute phase, when your Hammer of Wrath's open and you're not during wings or anything, you know, Hammer of Wrathing as your Judgment debuff is fine in that case. But not to get too into the works there. But yeah, it doesn't really change that much. I kind of agree with this. I do think it's a really cool set bonus though. But keep in mind, Bolas speaks very much only from a Raider standpoint. So he's very high single target priority, very high Raider priority. I'm trying to think of general gameplay and also Mythic Plus when I talk about this as well. Actually, I don't think much about PvP when I talk about tier sets, to be honest. But it's actually not that bad to have a tier set bonus that makes your Hammer of Wrath cleave in PvP. So I think in most game settings, it's really cool. And yeah, for single target in a raid, it's not very strong. They need to figure out maybe a way to make the damage higher for single target. Either way, based on this last one, I think Ret's going to need a buff to single target either way, is long story short. So the WoW community overreacts when it comes to whether it respects scales. Basically, and I've gone over this before, some people don't fully understand it, but Ret is now verse heavy class, and that's not a good thing. When you reverse heavy, well, it means one good thing. You're stacking verse, so you have even more survivability because you stack verse and it decreases damage taken. So that part is good. But other than that, that means that you basically don't scale with any of the stats in the game. Mastery doesn't scale anymore because they nerf the crap out of it. I think he says here the actual number is about 40% nerf to mastery. So yeah, when you nerf something by 40%, it's not good anymore. Haste doesn't matter because now we don't have to like try to fit in these generators, because with Templar Strikes, we always have that basically. There's almost never a time where you've used Templar strikes 4 times in a row, and then you have nothing else to press ever. Like that basically will never happen. Like you're gonna trigger a Blade of Wrath, you're gonna do something in that time, in that 4 seconds, basically, in those 4 globals. You're gonna trigger something or have something come off cooldown to press, especially, and then one of those things could be your spender as well. So you basically never have to worry about sitting still or anything, and you don't need haste to like speed up the cooldowns or anything like that. So haste has been taken down a lot. Crit, even, he mentions in here, has been taken a lot by having multiple abilities that always crit. So crit value goes down at least a little bit by that. Of course, you still want to crit on your spenders and stuff, but crit's value goes down a little bit by that. And then you have, and crit's value goes down a little bit when your wings gives you crit as well. Crit goes down a little bit. And so you're left with versatility, essentially. And so this is not going to scale well. I think we're going to start the season, start the raid tier being pretty strong, and then as everybody gets their gear, you're going to see Ret go further and further down the meters, especially in single target. I think a Mythic Plus will be pretty strong, especially in Pug Mythic Plus, where you are just pulling 1 pack at a time, like I mentioned. And I think PvP will be kind of mediocre in the middle. I kind of did a tier list on this stuff. But yeah, I do think that the single target damage, it will scale down. When versus your main stat, you will go down. When other people are haste mastery, they're going to scale better than you, and they're going to scale higher than you as you get more gear. So we're going to fall down the charts, and we're going to get to a point, whether it's this patch or the next patch, where if nothing is buffed, that we're just like at the bottom with Windwalker Monk, right? Is for single target. So we're basically reliant, and he basically says he doesn't want to harp on this too much because basically you're always at the mercy of Blizzard's tuning, right? When it comes to your damage, you're always at the mercy of their tuning. They're always going to tune like warlocks, sometimes hunters, sometimes mages, the full DPS rogues. Those are always going to be like the top things for most patches, right? There's going to be 1 spec on those at least. That's like a top damage. And they're always going to try to keep hybrids in the middle or the bottom. That's kind of what they always do, especially the middle. They like to keep hybrids kind of in the middle, it seems like. And so Ret is going to, whether we scale with haste mastery or not, they're still always going to kind of put us down a little bit from the very top to some degree. But now it's just with versatility, the part that matters is we're even more reliant on Blizzard to tune us, not to tune us down to keep us down, but to tune us up because we are going to fall down. That's just a fact of the matter. Unless they change something with mastery or something like that, we're always going to be something that falls down. And so we need Blizzard to prop us up with buffs, whatever percent buff to aura, whatever. It's not a great place to be in, and you can ask Windwalker Monks about that. It's not a great place to be in, but it is what it is. So I would say, should you play Ret Paladin, if you want to be the top damage, super wanted, super useful in every scenario, I would say no. Then in that case, you don't want to be Ret. If you want to worry about being at the mercy of tuning, like you have to be tuned up every patch, every so often. If you're not tuned up, you're going to just fall to the bottom. If you don't want to worry about that, then you shouldn't play Ret. Now, if you want to just have a fun gameplay and have high survival, then you should play Ret. So if you're more casual minded about that, but if you are all about the numbers, all about being, I assume you're a DPS player. If you're thinking about playing DPS, if you're trying to be the top damage, then I would say you do not want to play Ret in its current state. You want to, you want to focus on something. First of all, that's one of those things that are only DPS specs, because they will historically have 1 spec, DPS classes, because they will historically have 1 spec that's really strong, and you should probably pick one of those to play if you want to be that top damage. And it's not going to be Ret. Ret's not going to be like flavor of the month. It's not going to be the top thing unless they tune it that way. And that's literally the case for anything, right? They could tune Windwalker Monk to be the top damage single target if they wanted to. That's not going to happen, but they could do that if they wanted to. So unless it's some crazy tuning thing, you're not going to be the top damage as Ret. So that just is what it is. However, like I said, Mythic Plus I think will be quite fine. If you're doing really, really big pulls, obviously a more uncapped spec would be better, but it does have high survival. It does have some utility for your Mythic Plus group, and it will do very, very strong damage on a pull by pull basis. So if you're pushing keys and you're not worried about doing big pulls, you're just pushing keys and you're doing pull at a time, sometimes 2 pulls at a time, whatever, just getting through the key, just timing it. Ret can be very valuable in that case because it is going to be very, very strong on a pull by pull basis. So that's where I'm at with that. So if you're a Mythic Plus player, definitely think about it. If you're a PvP player, I think it'll be average to above average. If you're a raider and you really care about your damage, then maybe not. It would be my answer there. I'm going to continue raiding with it. I understand, at the beginning of the patch, I'll probably be pretty high on the damage meters. I expect by the end of the patch, I will be much lower on the damage meters, and that's very unfortunate. But I'm going to have fun because I care more about the defensive, the livability, I guess you could say, with it. I think that's really fun for me to really enjoy the fight. So that's where I'm at on that. Hopefully, if you're thinking about playing Rat, hopefully, I haven't dissuaded you too much, because I love when more people play Rat and care about it and stuff. But it is what it is. All I can do is speak the truth the way I see it. And yeah, I like always, I pretty much agree with everything Bolas says, especially understanding that he is coming from a raiding single target point of view on pretty much everything he says on here. So if you take that into account, it's hard to disagree with pretty much anything he said here. That's it for this one, guys. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.